Thank you very much for your time this morning, Azar. And you've just heard in my intro there that the approach that Enoch Godongwana is likely to lead National Treasury is a little bit different from what we've seen in the past in terms of a little bit more of a business-friendly environment. But looking ahead to what's set to come out on Thursday, what are some of the key pointers that you'll be looking out for?
Essentially, he is entering the medium-term budget policy statement in a situation of significant more strength than was faced by Tito Mboweni back in February. What has happened in the interim is that South Africa's economic growth rate has surpassed original expectations. There are a number of factors contributing towards this. But essentially what it is, the issue is that global economic growth has turned out to be stronger than originally anticipated, largely because of massive fiscal and monetary stimuli injected into their economies by the world's leading advanced economy governments. And secondly, because of the rollout of vaccinations against COVID-19 earlier than had been anticipated, which has resulted in an earlier than anticipated return to a semblance of normality in the way people conduct their livelihoods. And as a consequence, things like travel and leisure have picked up sharply. And together with the upswing in the world economy, commodity prices have risen quite sharply. As a result, many of our companies, especially in the mining sector, have made massive profits. And together with that, the taxes that they have paid have risen significantly. And so what Enoch Godongwana inherits now is a situation where expected tax revenues this year will be some 160 billion rand higher, we think at this stage, than what was budgeted by Tito Mboweni back in February. So this gives the government leeway to reduce the budget deficit considerably. That's the difference between what is spent by the government and what it receives in revenue. And as a consequence, the government will not need to borrow as much as had been anticipated. So the rise in the public debt to GDP ratio may be that much less than originally forecast. However, already the government has used this extra revenue to extend social grants by around 34 billion rand, together with other relief measures that were introduced a few months ago. So the government has already started eating into this extra revenue that it has got compared with budget. The other factor there was that the government negotiated a remuneration package for public servants that would involve additional expenditure of around 20 billion rand. The government itself insists that that additional money for remuneration is going to come from reprioritizing its expenditure from other areas, but we're going to have to wait to see whether that is the case. And then the big elephant in the room is that there is a lot of pressure on government to introduce a basic income grant, which, if it did that, would wipe away all the additional revenue that we have got this year. And then where do we go to going forward?
Yeah, of some very important points that you bring up there. And the second one that you brought up about the relief measures, or what government has been spending that revenue on, is quite important, because in delivering the policy direction, which is essentially what the statement is on Thursday, he's going to have to create a neat balancing act in terms of dealing with the socio-economic issues that we're dealing with because of the pandemic and economic growth, albeit it has improved, and also making sure that the economy continues to grow at a sustainable pace.
You're absolutely correct, and it's that balance, I think, that analysts will be looking at. There are some who would rather see government spending less and bringing down its budget deficit and projected debt levels more steeply than do others who are all gung-ho. Forget about the amount of debt that you accumulate. What we really need is to rescue people who are unemployed and enable them to receive an income with which they can go and spend, and the debt will then look after itself. So there are two different philosophical economic arguments that the government confronts, and essentially it will need to reach the correct balance between the two. There are, of course, other aspects that it will be looking at, such as state-owned enterprises, and we will be keeping a close watch on seeing how well the government or what measures government is adopting and what it intends adopting in terms of rescuing the financial liabilities of many of these SOEs.
Very interesting insights there, Dr. Azar Jammine, who's a chief economist at Econometrix, giving us a sense of what to expect this economic week ahead. The huge focus here is the medium-term budget policy statement that will be delivered by Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana.